What's up guys, it's Dave Marshall with the RC Marshall YouTube channel, and in this video series we're going to help change your RC life by going over all of the different features and functions of the all-new Spektrum NX Series Transmitters. As with all of our videos, everything that you see in the video is available in the links in the description. Those are affiliate links, and when you use those, it pays a small commission back to the channel, and we really appreciate your support. If you like the videos that we're putting out here on the RC Marshall YouTube channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications on so you never miss another video. Now let's get to today's tutorial. What's up guys, in this video we're going to be talking about how to set up mixing in the NX Series radios. To get into our mixing menu, we're going to click the scroll wheel. That'll bring us into our function list, and we'll use the scroll wheel to take us down to mixing. Whenever you go into your mixing menu, you'll see a couple of mixes that are predefined. So you've got an aileron to rudder mix and a rudder to aileron or elevator mix. As we continue through the mix menu, what you'll find is you've got rudder into aileron elevator, which means that as we control the rudder, it's going to manipulate the aileron or elevator. Or in this example, as we manipulate the aileron, it's also going to send some portion of that value over to the rudder. As we go to the bottom of the menus, we can see that we can have 14 individual mixes set up per model, and each of those mixes can be custom defined. So right now, we have these predefined mixes, and you can also set up to 14 custom defined mixes. Let's go ahead and play around with one of the predefined mixes here with aileron mixed into the rudder. As with most functions in the Spektrum radios in these NX series, we can assign that mix to a switch, which means that we can either have that mix turned on or we can turn it off using a switch. Now with a lot of these, most folks are going to want the mix to be on all the time, and in that case you would just put the switch position to be on, and then you can either use the scroll wheel to assign it to a switch. In a previous video we had shown you guys how to set up your analog switch setup, and here you'll see where you can set up the throttle stick, aileron stick, elevator, or rudder. You can use the analog sticks as a switch. So say, only when I'm at full throttle or when my throttle is above a certain position, that would enable this mix if we wanted to do something like that. So you can use your analog sticks as a switch. You can also use any of the other analog trimmers. You can use your 3 buttons down here. You have a lot of options as far as the switch that you want to assign. For this case, we're just going to leave it turned on. Curves, a lot like our throttle curves, we can set up different curves for different switch positions. So say we have a position 0 where there's no mix from the aileron into the rudder, and then we can also set up curve 1, curve 2, all the way up to 9 different curves, and the 9 curves would be relative to, say, a flight mode. So up to 10 different curves can be assigned, and they could be assigned to flight modes if you wanted to do it that way. By default, with the switch in the on position, curve 1 is going to be the curve that's going to be manipulated by the mix. So what we'll want to do at this point, we have the switch set to on, we have the curve set to 1, we're going to go up here where we have right and left, and what this equates to is as we move the aileron control to the right and to the left, we can see those different areas getting highlighted. When it's centered like this and both are highlighted, when I go to adjust those, they're going to be locked. If I move the stick to the left, I'm only going to adjust the left value. As I move it to the right, I'm only adjusting the right value. So we're going to go ahead and center that up, and we're going to set that to 25%. And we're going to lock that in by pressing the scroll wheel down. What I want you to pay attention to here is my channel monitor. I've got my aileron channel here, which is currently centered, it's at 0, and my rudder channel here. As I move the aileron stick, now that we've got those values locked in, it's going to increase the amount of rudder that is also there. So we can see that we've got our aileron stick deflected to 100%. To the left, and it's going to apply 25% rudder at the same time. It's going to follow along with that. So as I move to 50%, it's only going to be applying about 12% rudder, which we can see there on the channel monitor. That's an easy way of setting up an aileron to rudder mix using that predefined mix where the aileron is mixing into the rudder channel. So next let's look at a custom mix. So I'm going to go ahead and click on mix 1, and that will allow me to choose between a normal mix and a curve where we can set up a custom curve for that mix. So with a normal mix, it's going to be linear, meaning that as I move the control, it's going to apply a linear amount. It doesn't follow any kind of curvature at all. Let's go ahead and set up what we want the control to be. So what our input is going to be for this mix. Let's do throttle as the input, and we're going to do a throttle to elevator mix. We're going to make sure that's set to on. Again, that curve is going to be on 1. If we do assign it to a switch, we would have to change that curve to match the switch positions that we're working with. And we can also assign a trimmer to it as well. We also have 2 different rate adjustments. We've got one on the left and we've got one on the right. What we're doing is we're changing the rate or the amount of mix that's going to go into each side. And when we're doing a custom mix like this, they're each set independently. So right now you can see that the throttle control is not manipulating the elevator at all. And that's for each side of the stick. So as it approaches 0, everything on the negative side is going to be manipulated by one of these rates, and everything on the positive side is going to be manipulated by the other. So as we go into the positive numbers on the throttle channel monitor, so if you look at our throttle channel, right now it's still in the negatives, which is controlled by the right number. Once it goes into the positives, it starts to control the other side. Now, as we start going into positive numbers and we move to say -50, we're going to see a value of 10 to 11 there, which corresponds to the rate or the amount of change we want to see in the mixed control surface. I'm going to run the throttle back down to 0. What we're actually doing is we're applying down elevator as we give it more throttle. So say you have an airplane that balloons up quite a bit as you add more throttle to it. You can add a little bit of down elevator. Say we want it to climb a little bit, we can actually run those into negative numbers, and you'll see that at 100% throttle, we may want to give it 15% elevator. Once we're above half throttle, we're going to apply 15% up elevator. Now when we go, say, to 0 throttle, we can also manipulate everything below the curve as well. So say we want 4% down elevator to push the nose down as we go to 0 throttle. If you watch the elevator curve here, as we advance the throttle up to that 0 position, the elevator is going to be zeroed out. As we start to roll it down, so right now we're at the bottom of the throttle stick. Now we're at a -4, so 4 degrees down elevator. As we go above 50%, it starts to change this value, the -15%, which is going to give us 15 degrees of up elevator to go along with our 100% throttle. All right, next I want to talk about offset, and this can get a little bit confusing. When we manipulate the offset, the 2 values that we set up here kind of define how much is going to be affected as we move from the center position into negative values and into positive values. So here you can see that elevator mix isn't moving until we get to the 0 position on the throttle, right? So now we have, we're right there in the center of the throttle or very close to it, and it's not until we get to that point that we start seeing the mix take effect on the elevator, right? What happens when we change the offset value, so say we change the offset value to -50. When I reach -50, all right, we're going to see the value of our elevator start to change, and we're actually going to get more than the -15 that we wanted. So say we just want, especially for like a throttle control, if we set the offset all the way down to -100, for example, we're actually going to get -15 on each side. So what I expect to see is as I travel from the bottom of the stick position up to the zeroed position, I should be sitting at about -15, which is what I expect to see here, right? Because I have an offset that says I want to start this curve, and this is how much I want on both sides of the curve, right? So we don't actually need to do anything on this side in this particular example. So as I set that throttle down to 0, right, I'm at the bottom of the stick position, and if I go beyond that, so right now I'm sitting at 0. You can see we're sitting at -15. If I go all the way up to the top, it's going to give me -30, right? Because it's giving me -15 on both sides of the zeroed position. So in order to achieve the -15 that we were looking for, we're actually going to adjust the rate down to somewhere around -7. That's going to put me at -14. But -8, -7, somewhere around there is going to give me that desired output. And that way I've got, between the full travel at 0, I'm no longer starting that curve. Once it hits 0, I'm starting it at the very bottom of the throttle. So you can see that start to jump. Right, and I've got it at -8, so my highest mixed value will be 16%. You can kind of see how that manipulates that, and that's because we have that offset of -100. Now, something else that we can do is, say, a rudder mix into another channel. Let's go ahead and change this up here, and we're going to change our input channel to be a rudder mix. So as we manipulate the rudder, let's say we want to go into aux 4. So we would plug into aux 4 or channel 9 on our receiver if we had a 10-channel receiver. And what we can do is we can use that for separate nose wheel steering for this particular example. Say when I'm at 100% rudder, so on the left and the right, I'm at 100% rudder, I want 50% mixed into aux 4. Let's go ahead and set 50% on both the right and the left with no offset. So now that we have our rate set up for both the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the rudder stick movement, we can see as we manipulate the rudder to the left and to the right, that aux 4 will follow that and give us about half of the output of the stick movement. So if we wanted to go in and change, say, the center position, as we manipulate that offset to the right or to the left, we can see that our aux 4 setting is changing. So say we make a 10% change. As we move the wheel now, we'll see that the servo continues to stay centered up at -5, so we have a 10% offset. As we move it to the left, it goes up to 45, so that's still, 50% of that control surface movement. And as we move it to the right, it goes down to -55, which again is still 50% of that control surface movement. So we can use that offset with something like a wheel that would allow us to manipulate that center position. Now the trim, we either have it as inhibited or active, which means that as we adjust the trim of the rudder, it's going to manipulate the mix as well. If we turn that off, we can see that adjusting the rudder trim doesn't affect the mix. So again, what that trim is doing is it's just setting up whether or not the trim switch for the input value is going to also affect the mix. All right, and last we'll show you how the switch is set up. If we wanted to have this set up on a switch, for example, we would want this mix to be on the gear switch. So anytime the gear is down, we want that mix enabled. All right, so let's go ahead and flip the switch on. And we want position 0, which is our gear down switch. So this would be enabled when the gear is down. When we put the gear up, it disables the mix. So now when we manipulate the rudder, the gear is doing nothing. When we go gear down, now my gear is moving on aux 4, or my nose wheel steering. So nose wheel steering on aux 4 is now moving with the gear down. All right, and then the last thing that I want to show you is we have a reset down here. We can hit that reset button and it will reset everything for mix 1. And that would work the same for any of those. Now the only difference between the normal and the curve, so we set that first mix up as normal. We can set up one as a curve as well. This one is set up as a 3-point curve. What we would do is we could do the same thing where we'll click there and we'll go from rudder to aux 4. Now that we have it set to rudder, we can see that as we adjust the rudder to the right and to the left, that it is moving our center position. It's moving the stick position, which is along that horizontal plane there. So it gives you more of a visual cue of what's going on. Curve 2 is that center position. Curve 1, we want to move around. So we want curve 1 to be 50%. Now if we only want 40% on the other side, we bring it down to -40. And then we also have the ability, just like with our throttle curve, to change this into exponential curves. So as we start to manipulate those values, you'll see that it offers more of a curvature there rather than just a straight linear line. The same way that we could with our throttle curve, we're able to add points. Say we want to add a point here. We can go down to add point. We would move our stick where we want that point added. We'll go to add point, and then we would go and adjust that new point that we put in. We can really manipulate how that mix is going to work. So normal mix is going to give you something that's much more linear. With the curve mix, we can be very selective in how we create the custom curve for that particular mix. All right, guys, that's it for today's tutorial on the NX Series transmitters. Again, if you're looking to buy an NX Series transmitter, please check our links in the description. Those are affiliate links that pay a small commission back to the channel, and we absolutely appreciate your support. And as always, for all the other things that you need to change your RC life, you can always go to rcairmarshal.com, where you'll find affiliate links to all of our affiliate partners. If you have any questions on today's video, be sure to leave those down in the comments below, and I'll be sure to answer those as soon as I get a chance. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on those notifications. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.